Well, hello, folks. Glad you be with me today. How are you doing? Me, I'm doing fine. Uh, Thought we'd get on here and start talking a minute, and might tell a little story here in a minute. It's not really a exciting story, but it's one about nature and something that I found one time. And I'm going to go back hopefully this year and try to find it again and take some samples of it. In the Daniel Boone National Forest, along where Leatherwood is in Cave Run, there's a mountain. Well, it's not a mountain, it's a hill. It's probably about probably a 500-foot tall hill. If you run the line straight up and then over to the highest point of it. But I was up there scouting for deer back several years ago. And on top of this point, now, there's no road, there's no trail to it except a deer trail. And on top of this point, there is 5 rocks that are cut in straight angles. They're about right at 6 foot tall, each one of them. They're all the same size. I think they're about 6 foot tall. Seems like I could just come eye level to the top of them. And they're about 8 foot long and about 4 foot wide. And just squared off corners, edges, and everything, just like they were cut with a saw. And I would estimate them to weigh about about 30 ton apiece. They look to be caliche. Now, if you don't know what caliche is, that's clay and river gravel and animal fossils and so forth that have set in sedimentary so long it's formed rock. And it's one of the heaviest rocks that you can get outside of granite, as far as I know. But I took a sample off one time for them, and there's gold in them. But I only took a small amount just to check them, and you don't have to have a whole lot to find out if it's gold in something or not. And there's no way you can get them off the mountain. I sat and pondered on that for years to figure out how they got up on the mountain. And I just found them by accident. But they're still there because nobody can move them. Now, they would look like a type of a rock that you would use on a pyramid if you was building a pyramid at the base of the pyramids. They're gigantic. And they were all in a straight line, just as straight. Probably the line was, well, about as long as my house is wide. And see, 6 foot long, 8 foot long rather. Yeah, about 40 feet long, right close to it. And boy, it'd be a tremendous amount of weight. And I don't know what it was used for. But I figured sometime back in the olden days when things were a little more advanced than what they are now, which I do believe they were at some point in time, they were more advanced than we are now, because you take back before uh, the United States and South America broke off the African continent. It was called Pangea, and I believe that's the way the Americans, people got on America, the Indians. I believe they all was on part of Pangea at the time it broke off, because they're finding stuff that's just as old as what it was when they broke off. This thing that they come across Alaskan, I don't believe that. It could have been some did, but not the way they was talking about, because the people in South America couldn't come across Alaska and settle south. Wouldn't have been no way they could have done that. And I believe all the people in South America, which DNA shows it, came from Africa when they was part of Africa. And the same way with Australia, it breaking off. All the people that was on that part of the continent when it broke off, and they say, well, it wasn't that many people around back then. Yeah, there was. Because they haven't found the older skulls yet. They're still finding them older every day than what it was back at Pangea time. And they just ain't found the oldest one yet. Of course, that's my opinion. And they found skeletons of giants that lived back years and years ago. I just believe that we was all on that same continent, our ancestors back at that time, and when it broke off, the people that was on there, that part of it, came with it. Most simplest way it could have got done. And God ain't ever told you how many years ago it was when he put man on here. And it just happened one day when he created the earth and all its inhabitants. And he put Adam and Eve, and we all sprouted up from that on the African continent. And I believe they was here before the dinosaurs and during the dinosaurs. But that's my opinion. Anyhow, we got awful good at hunting some way or another, and that was a good way to do it. But I believe we were far more advanced at one time, really, than what we are now. Sorry about that yawn, but it's just like when I was in the military. I'd never surveyed before in my life. Not one time that I know of that I surveyed before I went in the Army. And they gave me a test, see how far my knowledge went to survey, and I passed the test. And after I passed the test, a year or so, a couple of years later, I become chief of survey. Didn't know beans about it. And I'm sure all my NCOs know that I didn't know nothing about it. And, but picked it up quick. Oh, there's a net. Couldn't get him. But anyhow, one little old gnat in here bother you when you just got one like that. But yeah, I'm going to go back and look at those rocks sometime this year. It's going to be a hard climb for an 80-year-old, but I can do it. Don't have to be in no hurry about it. I'm going to try to take my grandson, see if we can rustle up a snake or two, which I'm sure we can. That's the best time to go, is when the snakes is out. Have something to eat. Rattlesnake, good eating. But another thing I'm going to do too is I got to take my youngest grandson up there and show him a good place to deer hunt. He don't know about, and I need to show it to him so he'll know about it. And it's right across the valley that the rocks are on. And one time when I was taking my oldest son, I believe it was his first trip in the Daniel Boone National Forest. He was about 12 years old. I told him, I said, now son, I said, I'm going to take you to a place. I said, I don't care if you get a deer or not. But I said, the thing is about it, you're going to learn how to look for deer. And you're going to see plenty of deer. Because I said, where we'll be at, they come from every direction and cross right below the place we're going to be sitting. And I said, you'll see deer come from every which direction. And he did. We had to run up that hill that morning at daybreak to make sure nobody got to where I wanted to go. And he got wore out, and I run up that hill all the way, and he had to follow me. And when we got up there, got daylight about 30 minutes, 40 after we got there, and I showed him what I meant. I showed him, there was an old fellow went down the hill about about 100 yards from where we were sitting, and he was sitting at a pine tree that was broke off, and the tops of that pine tree was laying behind him. He was sitting at the stump, and right behind him, in that pine tree that was on the ground, there was a deer laying, nice buck. Of course, we couldn't shoot it because that fellow was sitting almost directly in front of us. And I think best I remember we counted at least 8 points on it. And it laid right there with that fellow in that pine thicket until he got up to move. And when he got moved, he walked back kind of up to the right side of that tree, or left side, excuse me. And the buck jumped up, it's like scared him to death. It'd been there all morning within 8 foot of him, or less. And he started around it, and it jumped up, and he couldn't even get a shot at it because it scared him so bad. And it ran up past where we was at and on across the hill. But if I remember correctly, like I say, I didn't care if my son got one or not. I wasn't worrying about getting one because I knowed I'd get one or two after that hunt anyhow. And I think we saw, I'm wanting to say 38 deer or 28 deer, one or the other that day. And he had 5 come up at one time right behind us. And he saw them, he got all excited, and he shot at them all the way out the ridge. He had a 30-30 Marlin, I believe it was, and he emptied that Marlin at him and never come close, I don't guess. But I knew he wouldn't because he got too excited. And but he saw deer all day long, and I could tell him just about every time there was some getting ready to come by because I'd listen to the birds and stuff, and they would change their pattern that they were squawking. But he learned a lot that day, and I don't think there's anybody else with us. I want to say there was somebody with us, but I don't know who it would have been. I can't remember anybody else being with us, but it seems like it. He had a buddy with him, but I don't know who. and I can't remember if he was or not. But that was back in the early 70s, late 70s. See, he was born 74. It might have been 81 or 2. I can't remember. But a long time ago. Yeah, long time ago. He got his first deer in Owen County, Kentucky. I had a friend that had a farm up there and gave me permission to hunt on it. Well, it was my friend's dad, and I got permission, written permission to hunt on it, and wanted to lease it, but he was wanting to save it for his grandson coming back from service in a couple of years. So we hunted on it about 3 years or 4, but there was I believe it was a small buck ran out into the field, and I told him, I said, take your time now. I said, you got plenty of time, and just keep it right on the front of his breast where his neck joins his breast, and then squeeze it off right there, and just follow the deer, and you'll be leading it enough. And he made a perfect heart shot, because when he squeezed the trigger off, why, it went right in that heart cavity just like it's supposed to. So he could shoot good. He just that first day he just didn't have the gun that was good at shooting off-handed. But I got him a 30-06, and it didn't have a whole lot of kick to it. Automatic. Remington, best I remember. But he's got a lot of deer since then, but it took a long time for him to get to where he could go and get one every time he went. That's just an art you got to develop, and I hunted live deer for Alabama when I was down there. They had a program where they was raising deer in a kind of like a nursery. They had pens that they would raise deer in. They'd catch them wild and let them get pregnant with a buck, and I don't think they ever used artificial insemination that I know of, but they would raise them, and then every time they got 20 or 30 offsprings, they'd sell them to other parts of the country. And I usually caught anywhere from 3 to 4 a week. Of course, you could see when you went out into Alabama, where we was at down there, you could see 3 or 4 a week, no problem at all. And if you carried a little mineral salt in your pocket, I had it in a cotton bag, you could get. And another trick too, a deer can tell if there's a meat eater around, the same as a bear can, a moose, any wild animal. If you're a meat eater, they can smell you because of your eating meat, raw meat, cooked meat. And so I would go vegetarian for about a month before I start catching these deer. And so when I would go out, I wouldn't smell like a meat eater. And I ate vegetarian for about a month before I'd start that. And I could walk right up, get the wind just right, and walk up and lay a lasso on one about any time I wanted to. Of course, it took a lot of refining my system. And back then, I taught several people how to do it. But you can't eat meat. You got to go vegetarian for at least a month before you start catching, learning how to catch them. And I'd make $200 per deer every time I would catch one and turn it into them. I'd catch them and actually get them to where they'd follow me and lead on a halter and a rope. And I'd put them in a truck and take them with a trailer on it and take them to where they would give me $200 a piece for them. And of course that was a lot of money back in early 60s, 62, 3 and 4, along in there. Well, I stayed there, say 62, 63, 64, 65, until September of 66 when I went to Vietnam. Of course, I was doing some gold prospecting too, but that worked right in with what there was plenty of deer where I was prospecting at in Coosa County, and I'd catch them up there, and I'd take my trailer up there and catch them and put them in the trailer. And don't take long to tame a deer down once you catch him. And if you don't smell like a meat eater, you catch him, you got some salt with him, you've made a friend for life right there. And now a lot of people don't say, they say, well, you can't do that. Well, that's because they just don't know. I'd catch groundhogs the same way. I'd walk right up on a groundhog, him be outside of his hole, and I could walk up on him and just reach down and grab him by the back of the neck, and caught a many of that way. And because when a groundhog has got his face in the ground eating grass and he's munching on that grass, he can't hear you except between chews. And that's the reason they have to stick their head up every now and then to see if it's safe. And if you're just dead still and the wind's blowing in your face and you don't smell like a carnivore, you can get right beside him, reach down and grab hold of him. Done many of. I used to keep a pet groundhog all the time. And that was the way I got them. My grandfather taught me that when I was a kid. And I growed up learning knowing how to catch groundhog. Now, I can never catch a rabbit because a rabbit will, it's not because you're a carnivore eater, he's just scared of everything. And he'd turn and dart and dash faster than I could, and he'd run me out of breath. But now a groundhog won't do that. He's going to run straight for his hole or another hole. And you had to know where all of his holes was. And you had to know which one that he was using and which one you wanted to get the wind to where you could walk right up on him and just reach down and grab him before he get in his hole. I had a brother-in-law and me and two of his friends went bow hunting up in Owen County, Kentucky, and we was sitting eating at Dry Fork, what they call Dry Fork, and there was an alfalfa field just off to our left. We sitting there eating in front of that alfalfa field, and there's a groundhog come out, and I said, Larry, I said, if y'all could be real quiet, not make no noise, not talk or anything, I said, I can get out and I can take my bow and I can walk right over to where that groundhog is and get over top of him and shoot down between his shoulder blades and get him. And he said, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I can do it. If you all will sit still and don't make no noise and just watch me, I'll show you how to do it. And I said, if I can't, I'll buy y'all supper tonight. And if I do, y'all can buy my supper. But I know they wasn't going to buy my supper whether I did it or not. But because they couldn't afford it. But I went over there and I got my wind just right to me, and I said, now if you blow the horn or anything to scare that groundhog, I said, the bet's off. I kept working. It took me about 45 minutes. It's 100 yards over there. It took me about 45 minutes to close the gap on that groundhog. And I was right over top, and of course they could tell. They had binoculars, and they could look at me, and they could tell I was right over, because I was actually behind the groundhog from where they was at. And they could tell I was right dead over top of them, and I was pulling my bow back real slow, getting ready to shoot him down between his shoulder blades, and they blowed the horn. Well, when they blowed that horn, it scared me and scared the groundhog, but I almost got the groundhog anyhow. It just barely did miss him. But they seen I was going to do it, and they blowed that horn so they wouldn't have to buy my dinner. But I wasn't going to make them buy my dinner. But I bought their dinners most of the time anyhow. But we had some good times, all three of us. Me and Groundhog went. That was one of the boys that was with us. We went bow hunting one time. It was hot, and I knew the place real well that we was hunting at, and I knew where there was a persimmon tree, and they was getting just right. It already frosted one, but it turned cool again, and they was getting ripe from the frost, and I told Groundhog, I said, now if we get one, I said, we're going to have to get it clean quick and get it back to the house. So if you get one, we'll get it cleaned real quick and get in the car and get. I might have had my truck with me. I don't remember. I had a truck or a car, one or the other. And I said, we have to get it cleaned real quick and get it back to the house or to spoil. Because I said, 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours in this heat, taint it, spoil it. Because I said, we can't cool it out. I had a cooler at the home I put them in, hang them up in it was an old garage, and I put walls in it and sawdust in between them, and you could hang them up in them. But anyhow, I hadn't been hunting 10 minutes under that persimmon tree, and I saw a little 8-point buck coming down, eating on them persimmons and walking around. Once he got his belly full, he started out there. I didn't get his belly full before I shot him. He started out there, and I put that arrow right dead on his heart. And in fact, he dropped right there. I never had to go not 10 foot before he died. And of course, that's the way most of my shots are. I usually shoot them right behind the ear and turn the switch off on them. But anyhow, I got him, and he never would go hunting with me more. Said I got him too quick. He didn't get to hunt. I said, well, you got to do what you got to do when it's hot. I said, it don't matter to me. I hunt by myself. But me and Larry went hunting many times together. And I usually ended up, always got 2 or 3 deer every year when we was allowed to. Wasn't for a long time, we wasn't allowed more than one. That was a buck, and then they finally started putting doe tags out. And I think that was while I was maybe